Eli Mercer walked through the shining hallway of the Cerinthian palace, trying to look calm even though his hands were shaking. The floor beneath him looked like smooth glass, glowing with soft blue light, and every step made him feel as if he was walking inside a dream. This was humanity's first official visit to the Cerinthian Empire, one of the oldest and most respected civilizations in the galaxy. The responsibility of greeting their queen should have gone to someone important, someone with years of training, someone wise and graceful. But somehow, it had fallen to him, Eli, the junior ambassador who had joined the diplomatic department only 8 months ago. He kept repeating the greeting phrase in his mind. The Cerinthian language was beautiful but complicated, filled with tones that could completely change the meaning of a sentence if spoken incorrectly. He had spent the entire night practicing it with his AI assistant, hoping he wouldn't make a mistake. But now, as he walked closer to the royal chamber, his mind felt strangely blank. His AI assistant, a small floating orb named Luma, hovered beside him. "Eli, your heart rate has increased by 37%, Luma whispered softly. "Would you like me to begin a calming protocol?" "No," Eli muttered through tight lips. "If you start that, I'll look even more nervous. Just stay quiet unless I ask for help." Luma dimmed her light in understanding. "Understood." 2 tall Cerinthian guards stood at the entrance of the chamber. Their silver armor reflected the light like liquid metal, and their eyes were calm and unreadable. When Eli approached, they stepped aside with a grace that made him wonder if they were floating rather than walking. He took a deep breath and entered. The grand chamber opened before him like a scene from a legend. Hundreds of crystal beams hung from above, glowing slowly like stars moving through water. The air smelled like a mix of flowers and fresh rain. Rows of Cerinthian nobles stood on both sides, wearing elegant robes that shimmered in soft colors. Their eyes followed Eli with quiet interest, curious to see the representative of humanity. At the end of the hall sat Queen Larasa. Eli had seen images of her, but none captured her presence. Her form shimmered with shades of silver and soft violet, and the natural crystal markings on her skin reflected the light like pieces of dawn trapped in stone. Her long hair flowed like strands of moonlight, and her eyes held a calm intelligence that made Eli feel like she could read every thought he ever had. She raised her hand, welcoming him forward. Eli's feet felt heavy. Somehow, he walked those final steps until he stood in front of her. His stomach twisted with nerves. This was the moment he had practiced for. This greeting could set the tone for the relationship between their species. Humanity had waited years for this day, and now everything depended on Eli saying one simple sentence correctly. He opened his mouth, and his brain stalled. The phrase disappeared. All the hours of practice, all the notes he studied, gone. Luma, sensing his panic, quickly whispered the phrase into his earpiece. Eli, half panicking and half trusting her, repeated it out loud the best he could. His voice echoed through the room as every Cerinthian turned their eyes toward him. The queen blinked slowly, her expression unreadable. The nobles began whispering among themselves. Eli felt the blood drain from his face. Something was wrong. He glanced at Luma in the corner of his eye. "Did I say it right?" he whispered desperately. Luma's lights flickered nervously. "I may have misinterpreted the data," she whispered. "There is a very small chance that the phrase you used carried a different meaning depending on tone." "How different?" Eli whispered. Luma paused. "There is a non-zero possibility you proposed marriage." Eli nearly fainted. The room suddenly felt much too warm. The Cerinthians were still whispering, their soft voices sounding like wind passing through crystals. Some looked shocked, some looked delighted, and some looked like they had been waiting for this moment for years. Eli considered running, or jumping out the nearest window, anything but standing there. But then Queen Larasa stood. The whispers stopped instantly. The hall fell into perfect silence. She stepped forward slowly, her gown flowing like liquid starlight around her. When she stopped just a few steps in front of Eli, he felt her quiet presence wash over him like a warm wave. She studied his face for several long seconds, and Eli wondered if this was the end of his career, or maybe his life. Then she leaned forward slightly, close enough that only he could hear her. "Finally," she whispered. Eli blinked. Finally?" The queen straightened and smiled softly, though to him it felt like the entire room brightened. She turned toward her court and raised one hand. The nobles reacted immediately, stepping back and lowering their heads in respect. A warm, gentle energy filled the room. The queen began speaking in her own language, her voice like a calm song. Eli couldn't understand most of it, but he recognized his name repeated several times. Whenever she said it, the Cerinthians nodded or murmured as if something important was being confirmed. Eli felt sweat trickling down his neck. Luma remained silent, probably trying to avoid making things worse. When the queen finished speaking, she turned her attention back to Eli. Instead of looking upset or offended, she seemed relieved, almost happy. Her eyes softened in a way that made Eli feel strangely calm. She extended her hand to him. "Walk with me," she said in clear English, her voice smooth and gentle. He didn't know what else to do, so he nodded and followed her. The nobles watched them with quiet excitement as Eli walked beside the queen through a side hallway adorned with flowing patterns of crystal and soft lights. The further they walked, the quieter the palace became, until they reached a small garden filled with floating crystal petals and glowing plants. The queen stopped there, turning to him with a peaceful smile. "You seem confused," she said. Eli laughed nervously. I think I accidentally proposed to you." "You did," she said calmly. "But do not worry. I am not upset." "That's good," Eli said, unsure whether he should be relieved or terrified. The queen studied him with thoughtful eyes. "Your greeting was imperfect, yes, but your courage to speak despite fear is admirable. It has been many years since a human stood before me. I have been waiting for this moment, more than you know." "Waiting?" Eli asked. "For a proposal?" She shook her head softly, the light catching her hair like falling moonlight. "For a sign. For a person who would step forward honestly, even by accident. My people have believed for a long time that an individual from the Blue World species would come at a turning point in our history. Your arrival today, your unexpected words, your sincerity, it feels like the beginning of something important." Eli felt his cheeks warm. "I'm not important. I'm just a junior ambassador who panicked." The queen smiled again. "Important moments rarely begin with perfection. More often, they begin with honesty. And you have shown that." She stepped closer, her expression calm and reassuring. "Do not fear. You are not bound to anything. And I do not expect you to understand everything at once. But I want you to know that I am pleased you are here." Eli let out a breath he didn't realize he had been holding. For the first time since entering the palace, he felt the tension leave his shoulders. The garden around them glowed gently, filling the air with soft light. "So, you're not going to accept the proposal?" he asked awkwardly. She laughed, a soft, musical sound. "No, Eli Mercer, not unless you mean it, and of course not today." Eli nodded quickly. "Good, great, that's perfect. But," she added with a curious tilt of her head, "I did say finally for a reason. There is something I must show you soon, something connected to why your presence matters." She motioned for him to follow her deeper into the glowing garden. "But for now, breathe. The moment will unfold as it should." As Eli walked beside her, he realized something unexpected. For the first time since stepping foot into the palace, he wasn't afraid. Instead, he felt a strange sense of excitement, as if the universe had opened a door he never knew existed. He had come here expecting a routine greeting. Instead, he had created a misunderstanding that might change everything. For humans, for the Cerinthians, and maybe even for himself. And somehow, despite all the chaos, he could not shake the feeling that the story was only just beginning. Eli followed Queen Lyrassa through the glowing garden, still trying to understand everything that had happened. The air was cool and fragrant, filled with the gentle shine of floating crystal petals that drifted like tiny lanterns. Each petal released a soft blue glow that made the garden feel like a living dream. Eli walked carefully, unsure if touching anything would cause another unexpected mistake. Queen Lyrassa walked with calm confidence, her steps smooth and graceful. She glanced at him from time to time as if checking whether he was recovering from the shock of proposing to her by accident. Eli tried to look composed, but his mind was racing. He still could not believe that one sentence spoken with the wrong tone had created such a huge misunderstanding. His career could have ended in seconds. Instead, the queen seemed completely unbothered, even pleased. And that part confused him the most. She finally stopped near a tall, shimmering tree whose branches looked like glass carved into soft curves. The leaves emitted faint music each time the wind touched them. She turned toward him, her expression gentle and thoughtful. "You must still have many questions," she said softly. Eli let out a weak laugh. "A few dozen, yes." "Then ask," she encouraged. "Honesty is valued among my people." Eli hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "You said earlier that you were waiting for this moment, that you weren't surprised. What did you mean?" The queen looked up at the glowing leaves before answering. "My people have many traditions and many stories that guide us. Some are ancient, older than most of our cities. One of these stories speaks of a visitor from a distant blue world. According to the story, this visitor would appear at a time when the Cerinthian provinces needed unity and fresh courage." Eli blinked. "Visitor from a blue world? You mean Earth?" The queen smiled softly. "Yes, your world matches the description. The story does not say that the visitor would be a warrior or a leader. It only says they would carry an unusual kind of bravery, a bravery that appears in simple actions, not dramatic ones." Eli stared at her, completely confused. "But I didn't do anything brave. I just panicked and said the wrong thing." "That is exactly why your presence caught my attention," she replied gently. "Your words may have been incorrect, but you spoke them with sincerity. You did not hide your fear. You did not try to pretend to be perfect. There is a strength in that kind of honesty, even if you do not realize it." Eli felt his face warm slightly. He had never considered panic to be a form of bravery. In fact, he usually considered it a weakness. But the queen spoke with such calm certainty that he began to wonder if she saw something he did not. She walked slowly toward a nearby path, motioning for him to follow. "Come, there is something I want to show you. It will help you understand why your arrival matters." They walked deeper into the garden until they reached a crystal archway that looked like it had grown naturally out of the ground. As they passed through it, the scenery changed. The soft garden shifted into a wide hallway filled with glowing murals that stretched across the walls like living light. Eli stared in awe. Each mural moved gently, telling a story through shapes, colors, and soft sounds that blended together. Some showed star systems forming. Others showed ancient Cerinthian leaders guiding their people. One section showed the Cerinthian provinces drifting apart, glowing in different colors to represent their disagreements. And then Eli saw something that made his breath catch, A small, glowing figure stood at the center of one of the murals. It was shaped like a human, though drawn in the Cerinthian artistic style. Around the figure, the provinces slowly shifted closer together, their colors blending in harmony. "That's—" Eli began. "Yes," the Queen said quietly beside him. "The visitor from the Blue World." He stepped closer to the mural. The human figure wasn't drawn as a hero. It wasn't shown holding a weapon or giving orders. Instead, it stood calmly with one hand open, as if offering help without force. The mural emitted a gentle hum, like a soft breath of hope. "Is this why you said, 'Finally'?" Eli asked. "Because you believed I was the visitor?" The Queen nodded slowly. "For many years our provinces have been separating, not in anger but in slow drifting. Each region focuses on its own needs, its own traditions. Peace remains, but unity weakens. And the Cerinthian people value unity as the heart of our culture." Eli tried to imagine an entire civilization slowly growing apart over centuries. It made sense, even for advanced species. Sometimes peace makes people forget why they were connected in the first place. "But why me?" Eli asked quietly. "Why not someone more important?" The Queen gave him a gentle smile. "Importance is not what the story speaks of. It speaks of sincerity. It speaks of a person who is not afraid to show weakness. A person who steps forward honestly, even when unsure. When you stood before me today, you did not hide your fear. You tried your best despite it. That is the kind of courage many overlook." Eli wasn't sure if he believed he had any special courage, but hearing her say it made him stand a little straighter. She continued walking, guiding him toward another room. "There is more to this than just the story. Your arrival comes at a moment when my people are ready for a new perspective. Sometimes a voice from outside can help others see things differently. You may not realize it, but humans have a unique way of approaching problems. Simple, direct, and often creative. Your presence could inspire more than you think." Eli followed her into the next chamber, which opened into a circular room with a high domed ceiling. In the center of the room was a floating sphere of light, slowly rotating. Inside it, dozens of tiny star-like specks moved in a smooth rhythm. "This is the Cerinthian Memory Core," the Queen explained. "It contains our history, our knowledge, and the visions of our future. It is not only data, it is a reflection of who we are." Eli stepped closer, fascinated. The lights inside shifted in patterns that almost felt alive. "When the memory core senses great change in our society, its patterns adjust," she said. "Look closely." Eli watched the lights dance. At first, the movement seemed random, but slowly he noticed one small blue light at the edge of the sphere. It pulsed gently in a steady rhythm. As it pulsed, several other lights began shifting toward it as if being drawn by a quiet influence. "That blue light appeared the moment you arrived," Lyrasa said softly. "It means the memory core recognizes your presence as a catalyst." Eli's throat felt dry. "A catalyst? For change?" "Yes," she said, "for unity, for understanding, for something peaceful and hopeful." Eli stared at the glowing sphere. He had never imagined that a simple, nervous human ambassador could influence an entire civilization. But the Queen spoke with calm certainty, and the memory core seemed to support her words. He turned to face her. "But what am I supposed to do now?" The Queen walked closer until she stood beside him, her expression warm and reassuring. "For now, you do not need to do anything extraordinary. I only ask that you continue being sincere, help where you can, listen when needed, speak honestly. The provinces will see that, and it will influence them more than a grand speech ever could." Eli let out a slow breath. "I can try. I just hope I don't accidentally propose to anyone else." The Queen laughed softly. "Do not worry. I will warn you before any greeting phrases. Her gentle humor relaxed him more than she probably realized. She looked at him thoughtfully. There will be meetings in the coming days. Leaders from each province will visit the palace. I would like you to be present, not as someone giving orders, but simply as a representative of sincerity. Eli nodded slowly. I can do that. You already have, she said with a soft smile. Today you began something meaningful. They walked out of the chamber together, moving back toward the quieter parts of the palace. The glowing hallways no longer felt intimidating to Eli. Instead, they felt inviting, full of possibility. He still didn't fully understand the story of the visitor from the blue world or the memory core's reaction. But he understood one thing clearly. The Queen believed in him, and that belief gave him a courage he had never felt before. As they walked, he glanced at her and asked, "So what happens next?" She looked forward with calm confidence. Next, we prepare for the future. The provinces will arrive seeking answers, and together, we will offer them hope. Eli nodded. For the first time since arriving at the palace, he felt ready. The path ahead was uncertain, but he no longer feared it. Something inside him had shifted. Something quiet but strong. And he suspected that his unexpected story with the Cerinthian queen was only beginning. The next morning, Eli woke up in the guest chamber the palace had prepared for him. Soft light shone from crystal panels on the ceiling, and gentle music drifted through the air as if the room itself was greeting him. For a moment he lay still, wondering if everything that happened the day before had been a dream. Accidentally proposing to an alien queen, being told he might be part of an ancient prophecy, being asked to help unite a civilization he barely understood. It all sounded impossible. Yet the soft hum of the palace and the view outside the window reminded him it was all very real. He stood up and looked out at the city below. Tall crystal towers curved like waves frozen in motion, glowing with soft colors. Sky bridges connected the towers, and floating transport pods moved smoothly through the air. The city looked peaceful, calm, and full of life. Luma floated beside him, her small orb form glowing gently. "Good morning, Eli," she said softly. "Your sleep quality improved by 20%. That is a positive sign." "I'm surprised I slept at all," Eli admitted, rubbing his eyes. "You handled yesterday better than expected," Luma replied. "Statistically speaking, panic levels after accidental diplomatic proposals are usually higher." "Not helping," Eli muttered. A soft tone rang through the room. A Cerinthian attendant stepped through the doorway, bowing politely. "Ambassador Eli, Her Majesty requests your presence in the gathering hall. The first provincial leader has arrived." Eli felt a knot form in his stomach again. "Right now?" "Yes," the attendant replied with a warm smile. "She said you should not worry. She simply wishes for you to observe." Eli nodded and tried to take a deep breath. He followed the attendant through the palace corridors, Luma floating close behind. The halls were busy now, filled with palace staff preparing for the guests. Some carried glowing tablets, others guided floating decorations into place, and some arranged fresh crystal leaves along the walls. Everyone moved with quiet coordination, almost like a dance. When they reached the gathering hall, Eli stopped in awe. The room was enormous, shaped like a wide circular arena with a domed ceiling that shimmered like a night sky filled with moving stars. The floor reflected the lights above, creating the illusion of standing among galaxies. Queen Lyrasa stood near the center, speaking softly with royal advisors. When she noticed Eli, her expression brightened. "Eli," she said warmly, "I am glad you've arrived. Today is important for my people, and your presence will mean more than you realize." He walked toward her, trying not to trip over his own feet. "I'll try my best not to cause any more misunderstandings." She gave a small, amused smile. Do not worry. Today, you simply need to be yourself. Before he could respond, a soft chime echoed through the room. The large entrance doors opened, revealing the first provincial leader. She stepped inside with calm dignity. Her name was Councillor Saravine, leader of the Eastern Province. Her robes were a shimmering blend of green and gold, and her eyes glowed softly, like polished jade. Eli stood slightly behind the queen as Saravine approached. The councillor placed her hands together in a formal greeting. Your Majesty, she said respectfully. It is an honor to stand before you once more. And I welcome you, Queen Larassa replied with the same warmth she always carried. Saravine's eyes shifted briefly to Eli, examining him with polite curiosity. And this must be the human visitor I have heard whispers about. Eli bowed awkwardly. Hello, I'm Eli. The counselor tilted her head, studying him with gentle interest. A simple introduction, rare among diplomats. He prefers honesty, the queen said. It is one of his strengths. Saravine smiled softly. That is good. There is a shortage of simplicity these days. She turned back to Larassa. Your message said you wished to discuss the future of the provinces. The queen nodded. Yes, it is time we consider unity once again. The counselor's expression shifted, thoughtful but guarded. Many of my people feel content as we are. Unity is a beautiful idea but difficult to achieve. Change often begins with a single open mind, the queen replied. Saravine glanced again at Eli. And you believe this human may help with such change? I do, Larassa said calmly. Eli felt heat rush to his face, though he didn't speak. Saravine stepped closer, her gaze steady but curious. Tell me, human, why do you think unity is important? Eli froze. He hadn't expected to be questioned so directly. Luma flickered nervously beside him, probably preparing to whisper advice, but Eli lifted a hand slightly, signaling he wanted to answer himself. He took a slow breath. I don't know your history as well as I should, he admitted. I'm still learning, but I've seen what happens on Earth when people drift apart. Sometimes they forget how much stronger they were when they worked together. Sometimes they stop listening to each other. It becomes harder to solve problems. Saravine nodded slowly, listening. And sometimes, Eli continued, all it takes is someone from outside the situation to remind them that unity isn't about control. It's about shared hope. When people come together, even small actions can make big changes. There was a moment of quiet. The counselor studied him carefully. Strange, she said softly. Your words are simple, yet they carry sincerity. I can see why the queen values your presence. Eli blinked, unsure how to respond. The discussion moved forward, growing deeper as the queen and counselor began analyzing the challenges facing the provinces. Trade disagreements, cultural gaps, and fading communication. Eli listened carefully, sometimes asking small questions when he didn't understand something. Whenever he spoke, the counselor paid attention, as if his simple human perspective offered something refreshing. After some time, Saravine bowed respectfully. You have given me much to consider. I will bring these thoughts back to my people. She turned to Eli. And you, human ambassador, thank you for your honesty. He nodded awkwardly. You're welcome. The counselor left the hall, and Eli let out a breath of relief. You did well, the queen said gently. I just talked, Eli said. Sometimes talking is enough, she replied. Sometimes a single honest voice can soften old doubts. Before Eli could respond, another soft chime rang through the hall. The second provincial leader had arrived. The day continued like this. One by one, leaders from across the Cerinthian Empire came to meet with Queen Larassa. Some were quiet and thoughtful. Others were curious and asked Eli questions about humanity. A few were skeptical, unsure why a human was involved at all. But even with the skeptical ones, something interesting began to happen. Eli's simple explanations and honest nature seemed to ease tension in the room. His lack of political experience, which he once thought would be a weakness, made him relatable in unexpected ways. He didn't try to sound wise. He didn't use fancy words. He just spoke from the heart. And slowly, the provincial leaders began opening up more during the meetings. By evening, the hall finally quieted. The last leader bowed and left, leaving only Eli and the Queen standing together in the soft glow of the ceiling lights. Eli rubbed his tired eyes. "That was a lot." "You handled it well," Lyrassa said softly. "Better than you realize." "I didn't really do much." "You did exactly what you needed to," she replied. "You offered a perspective that none of us expected but all of us needed." Eli looked around the hall, still amazed by everything that had happened. "Do you think they're starting to believe in unity again?" "Not fully," she admitted. "Unity is a journey, not a single step. But today, many minds opened, many doubts softened. That is more progress than I expected." Eli felt a quiet warmth inside his chest. Maybe he wasn't the hero of a prophecy. Maybe he wasn't the brave figure from ancient Cerinthian stories. But today he had seen something real: respect, curiosity, and hope growing between different leaders, one conversation at a time. The Queen walked toward him with calm grace. "Eli," she said softly, "today you helped my people see a new path. Thank you." He shook his head. "I should be thanking you. You gave me a chance even when I messed up everything." Her eyes softened. "Sometimes mistakes create the most beautiful beginnings." She looked up at the glowing dome and then back at him. "Tomorrow more discussions will continue. But tonight I want you to rest. You have earned it." Eli nodded, feeling the exhaustion settling into his bones. As he walked out of the hall with Luma floating close beside him, he glanced back at the Queen. She was standing quietly in the center of the vast room, looking thoughtful and hopeful. For the first time, Eli felt something shift inside him, something stronger than fear, something brighter than confusion. He was part of something meaningful, something growing, and he sensed that tomorrow would bring even more changes. The day after the great celebration, Ethan woke up with a strange mix of excitement and nervousness. He had slept in a chamber made entirely of soft blue stone that glowed gently like morning skylight. It was peaceful, silent, and warm, yet he kept thinking about the responsibility that now rested on his shoulders. The entire kingdom saw him not only as the one who had saved their future, but as someone they trusted. Someone who was now tied to their queen in a way he still could not fully understand. When he stepped out of the chamber, he found Queen Seraphina waiting in the hallway. She was wearing lighter armor than usual, and her expression carried a calm softness that made her look almost human. She walked beside him slowly and said that today would be an important day. They needed to speak with the Council of Elders about the future of their alliance and about how Earth could be represented in this new partnership. Ethan nodded, though he felt a tightness in his chest. He had never spoken before a council, let alone an alien one with centuries of wisdom. As they entered the grand hall, Ethan noticed that the elders were already seated in a wide circle. Their skin shimmered faintly, and their eyes focused on him with a mixture of curiosity and respect. Seraphina invited him to stand beside her. She began by telling the council that a new chapter had started between their people and humanity. She explained how Ethan's words, even if spoken by accident, had revealed something true: his loyalty, his honesty, and his willingness to stand by her when their world faced uncertainty. The elders asked questions, not harsh ones, but questions meant to understand his intentions. They wanted to know what he hoped for the future, how he viewed cooperation between Earth and their kingdom, and whether humans could be trusted with the knowledge they were about to share. Ethan answered each question with honesty. He told them he didn't come from a place of power. He was an ordinary man from Earth who simply wanted to see both worlds grow safer and stronger. He spoke about the promise of learning from each other, the beauty of cultures combining, and the possibility of peace built on trust. His words seemed to settle something deep within the elders. One of them stood and said that Ethan's sincerity held more value than any rehearsed speech. Another said that humanity's unpredictable nature, which once made them nervous, now seemed to be exactly what their kingdom needed, an ability to adapt, to dream, and to offer new ideas. Serafina glanced at Ethan with pride, and for the first time, he felt like he truly belonged there. After the meeting, Serafina led Ethan to a large balcony overlooking the main city. The view was breathtaking. Thousands of lights shimmered below, moving like slow river currents. The people of the kingdom looked peaceful as they went about their daily lives. Ethan stood beside her, letting the gentle breeze brush against his skin. Serafina told him that the elders had agreed to share their ancient knowledge with Earth, but they would do it slowly, carefully, and through him. He would act as a bridge between the two worlds. Ethan was taken aback. He never imagined he'd be given such an important role. He felt unsure of himself, wondering whether he could do justice to the task. But Serafina placed a hand gently on his arm and told him that leadership was not about being perfect. It was about being willing to grow, to listen, and to trust in the people around him. The next few days were filled with preparations. Messages were exchanged between Earth and the alien kingdom, bringing cautious excitement. Science teams were assigned, new communication stations were built, and agreements were drafted that would allow scholars to travel safely between both worlds. Ethan found himself attending meetings, offering suggestions, and learning things no human had ever known. He studied their history, their technology, and their values. He discovered that their people had once been divided, but they united after realizing how much stronger they were together. Their story reminded him of humanity's own struggles and made him believe even more in the idea of peaceful partnership. During the evenings, Ethan and Serafina often talked alone in the quiet gardens. They shared stories about their childhoods, their dreams, and their fears. Ethan realized that Serafina carried a heavy weight on her shoulders. Being a queen meant always placing her people first, sometimes at the cost of her own desires. He admired her strength, her calmness, and her unwavering hope for the future. One night, as they walked along a path lined with glowing flowers, Serafina paused and looked at him with a thoughtful expression. She said she had waited many years to find someone she could trust deeply, not only as a leader, but as a partner. Ethan understood. Their bond had grown naturally, built on respect and shared responsibility. It was clear now that his accidental question had opened the door to something real, something meaningful for both of them. The following morning, a grand ceremony was held in the central plaza. Thousands of citizens gathered, their voices humming lightly in anticipation. The elders stood at the front, and Serafina stepped forward to address everyone. She announced the official alliance between Earth and their kingdom, a partnership that symbolized unity, hope, and future growth. She then invited Ethan to stand beside her. Ethan took a deep breath and stepped forward. The crowd watched him with warm, welcoming eyes. He spoke slowly, calmly, and with the same honesty he had shown in the council hall. He told them he was honored to be there, honored to be given such trust. He promised to do his best to help both worlds understand each other better. The applause that followed was soft but heartfelt. It wasn't loud cheering like on Earth, but a wave of harmonious sound that filled the air with warmth. Ethan felt something shift inside him. He was no longer a stranger. He had become part of their story. After the ceremony, Serafina told Ethan that the next step was to visit Earth together. They needed to show humanity the truth, that this alien kingdom was peaceful, advanced, and eager to build a friendship. Ethan agreed, though he knew Earth's reactions would be mixed. Some people would be excited, others afraid, but he hoped that the presence of Serafina herself would help ease their doubts. Their departure was scheduled for the next sunset. As preparations were made, Ethan wandered through the city one last time. He had grown fond of the bright corridors, the gentle hum of floating platforms, and the kindness of the people. He realized how much he had changed since arriving there. He felt stronger, wiser, and more confident. That evening, the royal ship lifted from the ground in a smooth, quiet motion. Ethan and Serafina stood side by side at the front window, watching the city shrink below them. The sky outside shifted into shades of violet and silver as the ship entered the upper atmosphere. Ethan felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. Earth was his home, but returning with the alien queen made everything feel different. Serafina looked at him and said she trusted him completely. She believed that together they could guide both worlds toward something extraordinary. Ethan nodded, feeling her words settle in his heart. He didn't know exactly what the future would bring, but he knew one thing. This unexpected journey had changed his life forever. As the ship raced through the stars, heading toward Earth, Ethan felt ready to face the challenges ahead, ready to stand beside Serafina, and ready to help build a future where two worlds could grow together. What had started as an accident, a simple misunderstanding, had turned into something beautiful, an alliance built on trust, friendship, and the belief that even the most unexpected moments could lead to the greatest adventures. And somewhere deep inside, Ethan knew that this was only the beginning.